you know, ironclad belief
Yes.
that they just don't
You know,
let anybody else, you know, penetrate.
Absolutely, yeah. That's
right?
the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem with the world, that people are
Right.
are so, you know, stoic and so
Yeah.
so ingrained that they're not willing to change regardless of what. Yeah, sure. I mean, none of this works if you're not willing to learn or
So
grow.
this is a two-edged sword, though. On the one hand, you would like to have people that is sort of develop strong concepts so that you could project yourself or making progress or accomplish things in a way that you have based on that strong belief. But on the other hand, on the other side, edge of the sword is when that is very strong, you may have resistance. You may have you know, oppositions.
Yes.
And if you don't do a give and take, that can run into, you know, troubles, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in that sense, this always, you know, with human intelligence is that the intricacy of how do you apply the intelligence, how do you work with them in a way to make positive results.
Yeah. Well,
is
that you just hit a key word, positive. You have to keep in mind that these intelligences in themselves are non-referential. In other words, they don't have a bias. All right. You can be aware of positive things, and you can be aware of negative things.
Right.
You can have concepts of positive things, and you can have concepts of negative things. That's you. That's the way you think or you are. Right. So there's a polarity to these intelligences.
Right. That's
and
a two-edged sword.
Yes, and that's what makes us different. Okay, and it's that dichotomy that goes back and forth, and the constant feedback that makes one more intelligent and more successful, more capable of dealing with the world.
Yeah, but then in this sense, let's say we take education when kids, you know, go to school, learning, so on. Isn't that a good question to ask? Is how do you get kids to develop, okay, the concepts or beliefs in a way that as the children grow up and it will be in the positive direction rather than negative direction. I'll give you some examples. Nowadays, the schools have certain sort of politically correct attitudes or policies or things towards, you know, social issues, human lives. I always wonder, are we really impose on these concepts to these children in such early stage? You are actually putting the negative in them rather than positive. No one knows.
Well, I can tell you, the problem that you have with political correctness is that it stymies potential.
Yeah, exactly.
We go back to my example before of emotional intelligence and feedback intelligence. If somebody insults me, the minute I take it personal and I feel offended, I'm in trouble. I'm weakening myself. But if I look at that comment as as to whether it's true or not, whether there's something I could learn from that, how can I grow from that, it doesn't have the impact. You could sit there all day and tell me things about myself. I'll listen and I'll appreciate it, because by the end of the day, I'm working towards being a perfect human being.
Yeah.
All right, theoretically.
Yeah.
Okay. So political correctness to me is the worst thing in the world for developing potential. And anything that restricts potential, I'm against.
Right.
Okay. It's got to be something. It has to be an environment where people are allowed to grow and use their own powers, their own intelligences in their own way. And that's one of the problems with our educational system today, is that it's a one package for everybody.
Right.
And not everybody learns the same way.
But also another problem is that the intelligence always have some correlation with age. or time in a sense, okay? I mean, age can be compressed in a way depending how the intelligence is developed or learning process is applied. You should assume that a younger child, when the intelligence is developing, they probably has less intelligence compared to a person who's grown up, right, and educated and so on. And that kind of a loose definition definitely is acceptable, but how do you quantify them? It's difficult. So in the school, a teacher is adult. You would assume that the teacher has that higher intelligence. So when you teach kids, when you either through your communication expression to give concepts, beliefs into children, I would think that it really has to be very careful, right? How the children is perceived and then eventually develop intelligence.
Absolutely.
So I think this educational system, I'm in the serving on a school board, and I always worry about our education system, and I look at a much bigger picture. I tend to go beyond my school district and go beyond my own little sort of world, but you look at it in general. I mean, for example, recently there's a TV program that's now media, not the mainstream. Mainstream media sometimes shy away from this. There's an ABC television program by this name, Jim Kimmel. It's I forgot the title of the show, but it's like a kids table. His show is that he has few kids sit with him and engage in dialogues about current events, which is a very good program, because as an adult with intelligence, knowledge, and so on, you are trying to engage children to develop, understanding of the world, the concepts of it. But in this particular episode, the conversation is 3 sentences, but it's so critically being criticized now. Kimmel asked the kids, a bunch of kids, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, and says, "Oh, America," means United States, "owes so much money to the Chinese government. What should we do about it?" It's a very fair question, very good question, is to engage kids to think about, the country is in debt. And one of the boy answered. The answer is, "We'll kill all the Chinese on television, unedited." Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, for 5, 6-year-old, in innocence, so forth, and we're talking about the intelligence still being developed, that is an intuitive answer that could be rooted in some social things that we could analyze. Today we have so much violence, we have all these games and so forth. Kids are sort of it's okay, acceptable. But following with this host, Mr. Kimmel, right, says, he sort of chuckles or laughs, says, "Well, that's very interesting idea." Now, at that level, still okay, but emphasizing is very interesting idea. If you don't quantify, and in that process to try to instill the concept positively and so on, it's going to lead you to trouble, which he did. So he said that, and then he followed with a question. He says, "Should we pay off our debt?" That's okay, very good positive question, okay? And all the kids, say yeah. Maybe there's one kid that didn't even say or no. This is the transcript in this TV show. Then the following question was this Mr. Kimmel is, now, after kids say yeah, they say, "Oh, what about this idea, kill all Chinese?" He's bringing this back to that original sentence. And following was is, should we allow Chinese to live as an adult hosting a program on public television, ABC,
Wow.
with this kind of dialogue? You can tell this, whatever this guy's intelligence, how he's working, it's not working right.
No.
Right?
No, of course.
So this has become now, publicly criticized by many, many people, including myself. I'm a columnist writing for some newspaper, and they have a chain of a Chinese newspaper, but my column's English, because I told them, I say, look, Chinese newspaper without English means you are really cut off the communication part. So I have a column in there. I wrote this piece, and I try to tell people, analyze the situation. This is a type of example, how people apply intelligence, how the intelligence is used. So I just feel that somehow, as an educated adult, a host, I'm sure he's definitely educated, and come along this kind of a dialogue, you can see something's wrong there.
Absolutely.
Right. So when we are talking about this, I understand your theory and I understand the concept. I appreciate your effort trying to help people in sort of rightfully apply intelligence or develop intelligence. This is a good thing. But we really need to really understand, how this is done. Okay. So maybe you can now, start some examples. How do we really, as you say, whether resolve, conflict or helping people guide through emotional path, whatever. Let's have some examples.
Sure. Where should we start? There's so many different areas. Well, let me give you one that's one of my favorites, and I talk about it in two of my books, because I think it's fairly common situation, and it's a very difficult situation, and that's dealing with the loss of a loved one. All right. A number of years ago, I was teaching seminars at Seton College. And this woman approached me and she said, I have this friend she's 36 years old and she just lost her husband of 39 years old. He was killed in a car accident. 2 young children. Lovely young girl.
That's certainly an emotional wreck. Yeah.
Right. And this had happened a year earlier. And they said, she's been to therapists and priests and, rabbi. I mean, she's been to everybody, and she's just, she just can't get past this. Would you meet with her? Would you try and help her? And I said, okay, I'll do what I can. And make a long story short, I saw her maybe 4 or 5 times. And what I tried to make her understand was that she loved this fellow very, very deeply. And that love, what she was feeling was this loss of this love, okay? And love is a virtue. And I tried to get abstract with her, okay? I said, so here's what happens. You have this love, and you're walking along the street, and all of a sudden, out of this love falls this person. Okay, and you now are engaged in this abstract notion of love, okay, very heavily. Now it's taken away, okay, and you're simply looking at the physical part. This body, this person is gone. But the essence of that person, of your relationship with that person, still exists through your connection with love, the virtue of love. Well, she wasn't buying it. It sounds good and everything else. So about 6 months later, I'm about to start a new course at Seton, and I see that she's in the class. There's about 25, 26 people in the class, and she's sitting in the back of the class. I acknowledged her, was a little surprised. And I was just about to start the class, and she said, Dr. Flowers, she said, "Can I say something?" And I said, "Yeah." And she got up and she explained what I just explained to you, and how I tried to help her. She said, "You know, when I finally left Robert," she said, "I just, I was still as empty. But as time went on, it began to make a lot of sense." She says, "That was 6 months ago." She says, "And I want to tell each of you in this class, and I want to tell you, Robert, that these have been some of the most moving, important 6 months that I've ever had." Okay? So, I think that there are so many things that happen to us that are negative and bad in this world, but understanding and trying to help yourself develop and overcome adversity is one of the greatest assets that anybody can have. And that's simply what I try to do with athletes, with business people, professional people, people who have relationship issues. And I mean, I could give you...
Well, that's supposedly differentiate human being from any other, species, right? This is the part that, defines us very differently.
And if sometimes it really is something very simple. I had a senior golfer. This man has been a professional golfer all his life. A very good golfer. He never made the senior U.S. Open. He never qualified for it. And he came to me the day before he was qualifying, and he said, "Look, I don't believe in this stuff." He said, "But, what can you tell me?" 5 minutes. I asked him several questions, and I told him, "Your problem is not your golf swing. Your problem is you don't have a strong enough focus." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I think you're right." And he went out and he qualified for the senior U.S. Open. Now, he missed the qualification by one shot, but he had never gotten to that point before. And I had another LPGA girl who never, ever even qualified for a tournament. Worked with her for a half hour. She came in second in the Canadian Open one year. Shot a course record. She didn't bother coming back anymore, and she's never made a cut since then.
Yeah, this is very interesting, and I'm sure many of these psychiatrists or psychologists helping people in that sense. But what is intriguing, at least from our conversation following this NATI sort of concept, is how do you really pinpoint what element of intelligence is at a play at a certain situation? I think that's the part that I think to get a person to understand the conceptual part of the 13 elements and be able to apply, and then when it comes to a situation, you sort of point out, let's say 1 to 13, you say 2, 7, 8.
Yes.
You will be able to deal with it.
Yeah, well, I do that. I do that on a regular basis every day, and I have a couple of fellas who I've trained. One gentleman, he's a chiropractor, and he's excellent. I mean, he takes his patients, start talking to him about a problem. He says, "Come on the back," and he starts showing them the NATI charts and the questionnaires and whatnot, and they can't get enough of them. I mean, they can't believe what they're hearing. Yeah. And it's just a matter of, once you understand the intelligences and you understand, you have a basic concept of how they're interacting, like I explained before with the emotional and the feedback, it becomes very obvious. I've had sessions where I've had 20 people in the room, and we take one person and we walk them through their own situation, right? And within 10 minutes, everybody in the room understands what the issue is. They still can't because they're too close. But everybody in the room understands what I'm doing, and where I'm going and what the problem is. Okay?
Well, that's interesting. If that's the case, if let's take our current problem between, let's say, Boehner and Obama.
Okay.
They couldn't get along. They couldn't get things done. And the Congress and the government is in a dilemma. Everybody just having their own strong beliefs, have nothing to do with the other side, or willing to sort of yield or negotiate or compromise, right?
Right.
And how would you say applying this concept goes in there and help them?
Yeah, I would throw them both out. That's the first thing. A pox on both their houses. I think situations like that, you really do need group involvement, because people like that, when a lot of people are involved and see, you put them under questions, you put them under the microscope, and you ask them the pointed questions, such as with NATI. They're not going to be the same people that you see on television.
On using NATI, and the fundamental assumption is to be positive, but the positive in the definition in this concept is not defined by win or lose. Unfortunately, in real world, a lot of times people define not the positiveness, negativeness, rather win or lose.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
Obama wants to win.
Yes.
And Boehner wants to win. And power is at the play.
Yes.
Okay. Now, then, no matter how these people they are intelligent people. You cannot say they are not intelligent, right?
Yeah.
They are intelligent. Whether they have all 13 elements, no, I don't know for sure. But certainly they have enough.
They have them, but they're not using them. Yeah. But very quickly, we have what we call core human dynamics in natural intelligence. And there's about 8 of them: control, power, recognition, that type of thing. And what we've discovered is that sometime between the ages of 2 and 5, we develop an affinity towards 1 or 2 of these, sometimes even 3 of them.
Yeah.
And our entire lives are built around that particular dynamic. Now with them, it's a matter of power, okay? And if you watch and listen to everything that they do, even their personal lives, it's around everything, it's all around power. So the idea is to expose that as the focus of what they're doing, not your welfare, our parents' welfare, our children's welfare. They use those terms, okay? But that's not really, and once that's exposed, the world looks at them differently. But the problem is we can't get them to that stage, all right? I would love to create that stage so that people in leadership, if you want to call it that, are put on the spot. And people see them for what they are, okay? Without prejudice, without belief systems that are so locked in that they're incalcitrant.
Oh yeah, there's one fundamental thing people should realize is that whoever says, I cannot compromise, it's a failure.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think as a president or as a majority leader, whatever position you're in, if you are not able to compromise, it's a failure as a political, figure, right?
Absolutely.
So I think you're right. Throw them both out. Now, our sort of time is running out. I want to focus on one thing. You are trying to, bring your concept to people, help people, and so on, and you're doing it in a local community. So tell us what you're doing and tell people how to approach you or contact you.
Yes, well, the best way is to our website, www.drbobflower.com.
drbobflower.com.
Right. And we have questionnaires, analyses that you could take on there, which will help you identify your weak natural intelligences and your strong natural intelligences.
And you do this on a weekly, monthly basis?
I do it almost daily. People go to the website and they fill out questionnaire, and they fax it in or email it in to us. We do an analysis and we send it back. We communicate with them. And then if they want to, and that service is free, if they want to, we then design programs to help them develop their potential, strengthen their weaknesses, and understand what's going on in their lives. Now, what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to generate a team of counselors, coaches, mentors that I could teach this concept to, and they can relate it to their patients or clients, whether they be business people or therapists or what have you. Because I think that might be the best and the fastest way, and those people are trained tacticians.
Yes.
So that's where I'm trying to get
well,
to.
That's really noble goal, and you're trying to at this time sort of get them as volunteers, as
No, I want to teach them how to make money, how to help people. I mean, and how to help people achieve, how to help them, develop their potential.
Good. So, all right, to the audience, I guess, this hour we are touch upon this concept of NATI, which is human intelligence. It's a very, profound topic. It's not easy to grasp, but it's very important. Everyone has to have intelligence to deal with the real world affairs. And Dr. Robert Flower has this desire to help people. So go to that website, drbobflower.com, and you can go from there and perhaps join his seminar session or doing a questionnaire and so forth. And today we are really happy that he spent the time with us and engaged in this conversation. So thank you very much
My
for
pleasure.
joining
Once
us.
again.
And
Always a pleasure.
and if you later on have time, we'll do it again. And particularly if you have organized people together, bring them along.
Yes, certainly
All
will.
right.
Yeah,
Thank
my
you.
pleasure.
Thank you very much.